So here we are in Joshua chapter number 6. We see, now I want to go ahead and read verse 1. It says, "Now Jericho was straitly shut up." Now what's that mean, shut up? Doesn't mean they were quiet. It means they were in lockdown. Okay? Lockdown. Nobody coming in, nobody going out. And why was that? Look what it says. Because of the children of Israel. Now, remember, the children of Israel weren't that big a group of soldiers and armies. I mean, they weren't that big compared to some of the others. Even the Canaanites had more people in their army. But they're shut up, and remember, it was because of the fear of the Lord. That they were, look at verse number 24 in chapter 4, it says that all the people of the earth might know that the hand of the Lord, that it is mighty, that ye might fear the Lord your God forever. So they had heard about the miracle crossing, and no doubt they had spies there. They had spies that were watching Israel every day. I don't doubt that a bit. If you're smart, you're going to watch out for, you're going to send spies out, aren't you? America has spies just like everybody else, and they spy on the enemy. And they make notes and report back and tell what the enemy's doing. That's important, especially when you don't have phones and radios and you don't have cell phones and all that kind of stuff. They had to do it in person, and they had to go and stay in the field and then come back. So these spies, no doubt, were watching Israel, and they probably had a witness of that crossing over Jordan. They said, uh-oh, look what happened. Look how they got across. And they saw probably the hand of God stopping that water, and they saw Israel just marching across on dry ground. Now that's saying something for a river that dries up instantly, and so does the mud, isn't it? Remember, the wind blew at the Red Sea. It blew all night, and they crossed over first thing in the morning at the Red Sea. So the wind had dried out the mud there, but in this case, God didn't use the wind. He just dried it off completely, and boom, they walked over on dry ground. So now the spies have gone back and made their report, and what happens? The king says, shut her down. Okay? So they've shut down. So now we see that Israel now has been getting some very good encouragement in connection with Jordan. Remember, they crossed over on dry ground, so that's an encouragement that who's with them? The Lord's with them. And then remember Joshua here in chapter 5. Joshua was spying out Jericho and looking over and assessing the field, and as a good general would, he was laying out his plan of attack there. And all of a sudden he looks up and he sees a man standing there, and that's none other than the Lord himself, the captain of the host of the Lord. He came. So Joshua worshiped him, and that was to show Joshua, to give Joshua that encouragement that he needed to know that God was with him and that God was going to fight the battle. And you stop and think about that. When you're facing strong opposition, strong adversaries, what's good to know?
That the Lord is with you.
Exactly. That the Lord is with you. That gives you the courage and the confidence and the boldness to continue on and to do what God would have you to do. So they've been encouraged. Okay, they've attended to the important parts of getting prepared for this time when they're going to go in to Jericho. So this is like a parable with that of the beginning of our Christian life. So having been made the subject of the miracle of regeneration, or being spiritually born, and plucked as a brand from the burning, the sinner saved by divine grace now enters upon a new life, one as radically different in character as Israel's after they left the wilderness behind. It's radically different. Okay? Remember what happened when they crossed the Jordan? Several different things happened. The first one being that the manna stopped. The second being that the pillars of fire and the pillar of cloud stopped. Okay? So they ate of the fruit of the land. That was different too. So there were a lot of things that were different now that they were actually in the promised land. So here we see that a lot of things are different for the Christian as well when they become a new creature in Christ. Things are different. We're no longer just in a physical battle, we're in a spiritual battle. So having obediently submitted to the ordinance of baptism and fed on the Lamb, the believer is not to see upon our own, but it is called to engage in spiritual warfare and glorify God. We're not out there as lone sheep or we call it Rambos and things like that. We're not out there like that. We're with the flock of God doing as God would have us to do. Joshua didn't go off willy-nilly after he saw the Lord and say, hey, let's go, boys, let's go attack. We got God here. No. Joshua did what he was told to do. As a matter of fact, look at verse 2 of chapter 6. Look what it says. And the Lord said unto Joshua, see, I have given into thine hand Jericho and the king thereof and the mighty men of valor. Now, the mighty men of valor are the ones you're concerned about, aren't they? Think about it. Who are the mighty men of valor? Those are not just the everyday warrior. These are the specialists in warfare. They're the top dogs. They're the Green Beret or the Recon or whatever other armed forces specialty units you have. They're the top guys in the field. They're professionals. Mighty men of valor. They had no problem going in and hacking up. All right? And that's exactly what he says. I have given into your hand Jericho, the king, and the mighty men. So that means what? If God's given them into their hand, what's that tell you is going to happen? They're going to win. Exactly. So they're serving under God's banner and doing exploits, overcoming his foes, the Christian, and entering into his present possession of his inheritance. And that's exactly what we will do. We're getting ready to cross over Jordan, and that represents death, doesn't it? Remember, in most of our songbooks, we have songs about crossing over Jordan. That's a reference to passing into the other unseen realm or over into heaven of heavens. We know that when we die, there's one or two places our soul can go. First place is hell. Don't want to go there, but you will go there if you don't know Jesus. The second place is heaven, and the entrance again is required to have the blood of Christ upon you to gain entrance into heaven. So we're holding and serving under God's banner, and we're doing exploit, overcoming our foes, and we're going to enter into the present possession of our inheritance, which will be New Jerusalem. Soon, I believe in soon, we're going to cross over. We're going to go up into the clouds and be received by Christ into the clouds. We're going to march into heaven with Christ, and then that 7-year tribulation will begin. So Jericho now was a fortress. It was a frontier town, and it was a key city. It was a powerful fortress because it had thick walls, and it was something that would take Israel a long time to do it in and of themselves. Now, when you have a strong walled city, you can't just burn them out. You can't just go through the walls and chop a hole in the walls. You're going to have a problem with that, aren't you? Because what are they going to be doing up above you? Shooting at you, throwing rocks at you, dropping big old boulders on you, pouring hot oil on you. Whatever they got, they're going to use. So it would take a while building up a ramp, they call it a rampart, building that up, an earth fortification, so that you could walk up and walk over those walls and go into the city and begin the taking of the city. So Israel, it would have took them a long time to have done that. But remember now, God is going to do this. So when God says, see, I've given them over to you, we still have a responsibility to do what God tells us to do. All right, we're still responsible to carry out our duty. So Joshua hears this, and Joshua begins, and he begins to be instructed by God as to what to do, how it's going to take place. Now that's an interesting part in and of itself, because what usually happens when we start getting told to do something, what do we usually do? Sometimes we don't do it, and then sometimes we do it too well. We go overboard and get carried away. We don't do what we're supposed to do. We do more than what we're supposed to do, or we do the wrong thing. I mean, we just kind of go willy-nilly. But here now, this fortress had to be conquered, and it looked to be quite impossible to penetrate the walls. You know, digging a hole into a wall takes a lot of work, doesn't it? Think about it. Back then, they didn't have a whole lot of tools, did they? No, they would have to have a pick or a shovel and mattocks and all those kind of things, chisels, to dig a hole in the wall, and that would be no easy task. So they considered to be quite impregnable, and the destruction of it would not only be a great encouragement to Israel, but it will also increase the dismay of the other kings of the Canaanites. So if they won this victory, it would be quite impressive to the other kings to say, uh-oh, we got some trouble, boys. Remember, they even formed a confederacy to try and stop Israel, but there was no stopping Israel because God was on their side. So to the overthrow here, we're going to see how God does something unique that you wouldn't expect to happen. God does something different, quite a bit different than what a man would do, what Joshua would do. You know, when you seize a city, the only way you're going to get in is to either poke a hole in the wall or build you an earth ramp to go over into the wall. So that would be the plan. Ultimately, you want to starve out them that are in the city. That's ultimately how you win, is you take about a year's worth of seizing, and finally they surrender because they're starving to death. That's the customary way. Well, God is going to do it a uniquely different way. So we see the futile efforts of those who oppose God, and how worthless are those that are hiding in this city, because they're not going to stop God from coming in. No matter how thick the walls are, no matter how high the walls are, no matter how strong the warriors are in that city, God's going to take over and win this battle. So in this chapter, we have a memorable episode that teaches us how the people of God are to act if they would have him show himself strong in their behalf. Now, how should you act if God tells you to do something?
Get up and go.
Right, you obey, right? You get up and do it. So look what he says in verse 3 and 4 to do. And ye shall compass the city, all ye who? And go round about the city, what?
Once.
Thus shalt thou do, how many days?
6 days.
All right? So all the men of war, it doesn't say the priest or any of them, right? None of the other people. Just the men of war go round the city. And why just the men of war? There's a reason for that. What's going to happen to those men of war going to be walking around? All right, they're going to be taking long shots at them. So the men of war would know where to walk out of bow range, right? So they walk one time around and stop. And they go back to camp. Now you can understand how if you're on the other side of the fence, on the other side of the wall, what in the world are they doing? Tormenting us, taunting us, trying to get us to open the gate? It ain't working. We ain't moving. So they did that for 6 days, which is kind of weird, you know. What is it accomplishing, them just walking around the city for 6 days?
Accomplishing God's will.
Exactly. It's accomplishing God's will. God told them to do it. God told them to do it, And guess what? They done it. That's the requirement for anybody doing something for God. If God tells you to do it, simply do it. Don't fight, don't resist, don't go your own way. Do what God tells you to do. So this scheming of men saying, oh, we're protected here. We got plenty of water, got plenty of food, got plenty of weapons, plenty of arrows. We can stand up a long time. That's not going to count for anything come day 7, verse 4. And the 7 priests, now notice how many priests, and 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns, and the 7th day ye shall compass the city how many times?
7 times.
Right? This time you've got priests and the ark going ahead of the army. Okay? And the priests, other than the ones carrying the ark, they don't count now because they have to carry the ark. They can't blow a trumpet and carry the ark too. Said the priests ahead are given a ram's horn. All right? Now, you reckon it by not, if you didn't know the story, you say, well, why in the world are they carrying ram's horns in front of the ark? Well, you know what a ram's horn was used for back then. What was it for?
Warnings.
It was a sounding of battle, a sound of warning, or it was used to gather the army or whatever. It was different, okay? They called it the shofar. Remember that? The shofar? You see them with that little curled horn blowing that horn? And that was an important trumpet, as it were. And we call it a trumpet now. But it was an important event when those things were blown. So the priest shall bear before the ark 7 trumps of ram's horns, and the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times, and the priest shall blow with the trumpets. All right, now think about this. What if you were in that army? Saying, why in the world are we marching? We've done march one time around for 6 days. Now you want us to march 7 times? I can just hear them old soldiers, them privates saying, rah, 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 growling and groaning, saying, what in the world are we doing marching around this city? He said, now we got to do it 7 times, as if one time wasn't enough. Now we got to do it 7 times. I can just hear the soldiers complaining. Soldiers always complain, okay? Either the food's cold, or it's not the right taste, or the equipment's no good, or the captain's no good, or the sergeant's no good, or what, da-da-da-da. There's always something they're going to complain about. But now, remember now, they're doing it. So they're accomplishing their mission. However begrudgingly they would do it, they're doing it. Now notice what God says is going to happen. And it shall come to pass that when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, when you hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout. And what's going to happen?
The wall of the city shall fall down flat.
Flat. In other words, it's not just going to chip away and drop a stone here, drop a stone there. It's going to go, ooh, poof. Okay? And since I think it's been a little while yet, a couple of years ago, they found the walls of Jericho like that, in that description. They found it in archaeology. And that's interesting. Another proof text that God did what he said he did. All right? And God lets them find that stuff every now and then just to verify his word. God doesn't have to prove his word is true, but every now and then he lets them find some stuff that proves to us it's true. All right? So he says, the wall of the city shall fall down flat, and the people shall ascend up every man straight before him. In other words, you're going to whoosh right in. And Joshua the son of Nun called the priests and said unto them, take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord. So you got 7 priests, 7 trumpets before the ark of the Lord being carried by those 6 men. All right? Now remember, that's heavy. And they're marching. So they have to march 7 times around on that time. And that would be kind of tiring, wouldn't it? Carrying that heavy gold box. So here now is the scene. We see that the men of the city have said, well, we're safe. We ain't got to worry about nothing. We're safe in our refuge. God's going to take their refuge down. They just don't know it. All except one wall and one place. You might remember where that place was? Yeah, Rahab's wall where her house was. Remember, it was connected to the wall, and she had that scarlet thread there, and she was protected by that scarlet thread. The spies had reminded them that, hey, we gave her our word that she would be spared, her and her family, if she helped them, and she did. So they were obligated to help Rahab, and God protected that one space, that one wall portion of the wall, that was her house. So remember, there's a promise there that had to be kept. And God knew about the promise, and guess what? That part didn't fall down. But the other walls, whoosh, flat. So what is here before us, we see Israel acting not on the defensive, like, if you were to go to war and you go into a country, what's going to be usually the first thing you meet? You're going to meet the armies, right? But this time they're not acting on the defensive, they're going on the offensive. And they're going in a unique way, which tells us that there is an active side into all Christian warfare, as well as a passive one. Something when it is too often forgotten by many doers, many of us, is that we have an active side that we're to do, and we have a passive side. We're to wait on the Lord to tell us what to do, then we're to do it. That's the active. The passive side is waiting on the Lord to tell us what to do. See, Joshua, remember, he was surveying the land, and he was forming a plan of attack, but that didn't make a difference to the Lord, did it? No. He had to do according to what the Lord said. So as you think about that this evening, think about this falling down in the city, and we'll read the rest of it as it comes to place to happen. But just because men are holed up in a wall in the city with walls doesn't mean they're not going to be beaten. And sometimes those obstacles look like great obstacles. Remember David, what did he see? He saw a giant, okay? He didn't see that giant as an obstacle because he knew the Lord was going to fight for him. And remember, that giant had a soft spot prepared in his forehead where that stone hit him in the head, right at the exact spot where God made a soft spot in that guy's head. It hit right there, and it said it sunk in, okay? Which meant there was a soft spot there that David hit just right, or that God hit just right, into Goliath's skull and killed him instantly. So remember this, a closed city doesn't mean anything to God. God knows how to defeat the enemy and does defeat the enemy. And we read ahead, we've read in Revelation 20 where the devil is defeated. He's going to be defeated. He's going to lose. And we're going to win. That's right. It's recorded in history. It's recorded in the future. And it's going to happen exactly like God says it is. So let's be on the winning side. Let's be ready. Let's be packed up. And let's do what God tells us to do. And let's carry the gospel forth, that gospel message forth to the lost. All right, we'll stop there. Let's all stand.